Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Eddrick Show. I am your host, Eddrick Jerome. This is the place for intelligent conversation with interesting people. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment. Let me know how I'm doing as I continue to grow this show from the ground up. I have a very special panel today. My guests are the Honorable Elihu Harris, former two-term mayor of Oakland and former member of the California State Assembly. He's also the presiding chair of the Martin Luther King Jr Freedom Center in Oakland, California. I'm also joined by Dr. Roy Wilson, the executive director of the Martin Luther King Jr Freedom Center, and I'm honored to be joined by Ms. China Pettway, master quilter and member of the G's Ben Quilters Collective from G's Ben, Alabama. On March 4th, members of the famed G's Ben Quilters Collective will give a lecture as part of the Barbara Lee and Elihu Harris lecture series, which will be followed by a month-long exhibit of more than 30 quilts at the Joyce Gordon Gallery in Oakland. Let me again say welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Mayor Harris, let me start with you. Can you tell me about the history and goals of the Elihu Harris and Barbara Lee lecture series? How did it start, and what are some of the objectives you have accomplished with this lecture series?
Well, as someone who grew up in the civil rights era, one of the things clear to me was those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. We've seen a constant struggle against racism and poverty and so many of the things that Martin Luther King fought for during his lifetime that we know are going to be continuing struggle. And we want to remind people, we want to educate young people about who Martin Luther King was, the importance of nonviolent conflict resolution. And so over the years, starting with the Institute for Community Leadership that Dr. Wilson was a part of, and his willingness to come and provide that type of leadership and training to young people in the Bay Area and throughout California, I think has been sort of a pathway to the lecture series. The lecture series started on the basis of wanting to have those who had legacy to be able to share that with other people in our community who didn't always understand that this was a continuing journey. It wasn't interrupted with the assassination of Dr. King, but others have carried on that struggle, carried on that fight. And quite frankly, to this day, there are people like the Quilting Consortium that continue to make sure that people understand the history, understand the importance of art, the importance of struggle. And again, all of this is about educating young people as well as older adults to remind them that the struggle is far from over. So the lecture series started about 25 years ago. We had, fairly important guests and people who represented that history come and speak both live and on Zoom to people throughout not only this community, but throughout the country and in fact, around the world. One of the things I wanted to mention was when you have people like John Lewis and Andy Young and so many others who are direct consistent participants with Dr. King in the struggle, then you're getting it firsthand. This is not hearsay about the struggle for justice and civil rights. So the lecture series is to make sure that communication takes place, that learning takes place, and there's a legacy that is maintained. And so obviously we're very proud to have the quilters come, share their story about how using art to not only maintain the history, but also continue it for generations yet unborn.
Thank you. And Ms. Pettway, this is an honor and just a large event and a very important cultural event. So maybe you can start out by telling us about the G's Ben Quilters Collective and the historical significance of quilting in G's Ben, Alabama.
Well, G's Ben was in the Quilter collection. It was established when Bill Arnett came down from Atlanta, Georgia. I think he was looking at the newspaper or through some type of a magazine, and he saw Miss Anna Mae Young quilt draped across some wood. So he said, I got to find that lady. And so the next day or two, he came to Rehoboth where Miss Anna Mae Young was living. And he talked to her about that quilt. So that quilt you see, it's on the smaller book that draped, that the book that the one that got the quilt draped on that across that wood, that's Miss Anna Mae Young quilt. And he discovered that we was doing art. which I didn't know nothing about art. When I was going to school, they didn't taught us nothing about art. So when he came to Miss Anna Mae Young's house, and Miss Anna Mae Young called her niece, a cousin, Alonzo Pettway, which is gone past. She done passed away now. And Alonzo and my mother was friends. So Alonzo called my mother, which my mother was named Leola Pettway. And she told him, a man up there in Alberta, you know, he buying quilt. So my mama told me. So he came down, he got some quilt from my mother, quilt from Miss Alonzo, and my mama told me she was sending him to my house. And when Mr. Bill Arnett came to my house, I had nice looking quilt, but he gonna go up underneath my sofa and got that. I said, no, this not the one I want you with. He said, no, this is art. And I said, no, that ain't art. I thought art was supposed to be pretty, but he said, this is art, and that's the one he got, and that's the one I got in some museum somewhere now. And he paid me for that quilt, and I was able to go and get my children clothes, buy food for my house and everything. So then I discovered that we was doing art. Like I was before telling you, I didn't know nothing about art. I didn't know we was doing no art. And then at the quilt collection now, we had Mary Ann. She is the manager over the quilt collection, and she is doing a great job. And I recommend her. Say thumbs up to Mary Ann, because it's so much work, so much things she be going through with. But I try to help her the best way I can. And at the collection, you know, some of the ladies, they pulled out and they joined other organizations. But I said, I started out with the G-Spin quilt collection, and I'm going to stay with the G-Spin quilt collection. And then I remember when we went on our first quilt trip, we went to, I think that was, was it Texas? It probably was Texas. We went there, and those people, they showed us such a good time. And Lord, I had never been treated that way in all of my days. They fed us the finest and the best food. Because when we was growing up down here in Jesus Bend, I didn't know nothing about the food I ate in Texas. But the food was good, and they treated us real nice. And another thing, we went to Milwaukee, and good Lord, when we went to Milwaukee, Lord have mercy, everything, Texas and Milwaukee, Lord, like because I had never been to the city before. My first time was going out of the city, you know, and I enjoyed every minute of it. You know, when we was growing up, how we grew up, okay, it's a lot of time we didn't have food to eat. Excuse me. Every time I think about this, how we was treated, we didn't have food to eat. When sometimes my mama cooked, she would cook some cornbread, and when she cooked that cornbread, she would get some grease and pour that bread in some water, and we was calling it cushion mammy, which was cushion mammy. It was just like that. We used to call that dressing. You know, they making that dressing like for the turkey.
Yes, ma'am.
Only thing, she didn't have the onions and the bell pepper, but it was good. She had salt and put in it, and the grease. It was good to me, because everything I ate during those days was good. I wasn't hard to please. And when we was making quilt, those quilt was made from our old clothes. When our clothes wore out, our mother, our parents, they took the best part of that, the skirt or the dress or those pants, blah, shirt, and they took it and put it together and made a quilt. They ain't know nothing about mashing. We wasn't mashing nothing. They just were making those quilts to keep us warm. And my mama, she just, you know, made those quilts. We had to hang quilt on the wall because our house wasn't so good. On the wall to keep the wind out. On the door to keep the wind, you know, coming in. Put so many on our bed. And my mama put like 8 or 9 quilts on one bed with 4 or 5 of us was in one bed. And those quilts was warm, but sometimes we couldn't even turn over, but they was feeling good. And I'll tell you all, you know, when I went on my first quilt, you know, I thought I was in heaven, The people, you know, they showed us, they took us, they fed us, they treated us. Lord Jesus, I thank God. And you know, now I have an opportunity, you know, to go to a fabric store. When I go to those fabric stores, I don't want to come out those stores. I can stay in a fabric store all day looking at those beautiful colors. God knows those colors, you know, it does something to me. I guess because we wasn't used to having nothing. My mama had 11 children, and a girl, she died when she was a baby. And she had 6 girls and 5 boys. And the girl, like I said, she died when she was a baby. She went on home. She lived about a day. And after that, after my mama had delivered her, she passed away. But I still got so much, you know, it's so much I can tell people. I just tell God. And I thank, you know, the Arnett, you know, for coming down from Atlanta, Georgia, and discovering that we was doing art, which we ain't know nothing about art, you know. And when Dr. Martin Luther McKing, he came from wherever he came from. He came down to speak. He wanted to go to Camden, but I don't think the people allowed him over there in Camden. So he came to Jeans Bend, you know, and he spoke at the Pleasant Grove Baptist Church. That's why he made us speak. We wanted to go with my mama, but my mama said, no, y'all stay home. I'm going to tell you all about what he said. And done. I'm going to tell y'all about it when I get back. So we came home. We stayed home, waiting on my mama. And when my mama got back, we went to meet our mama. I think my mama, they walked. But then, you know, we didn't have vehicles in this community. It was about 4 or 5 vehicles in this community. And one of the things about those people in this community, they always share with what they had. Whatever they had, you know, they share with one another. And I thank God for them. You know, I walked to school and I didn't have shoes to wear to school. A lot of days I went to school barefooted. And it was cold, like the ground used to be so cold and the ground was busting up. But I used to steal at the back door because our hospital was on the side of the highway where the bus was running. And I steal at the back door. The children be out there here on the bus, and I sleep at the back door barefooted, and I went to school. But God took care of me. And I am so grateful to speak with you all. I am so grateful, and I thank God for Miss Carol for coming down, discovering that we was doing art, and we will be in Oakland, California next week. And I thank God, and I thank you. I don't know your name. You told me, but I forgot it.
That's okay.
And I would like to say this. I would like to say that. I know I'm talking too much.
No, not at all.
I know I don't overtalk, but a lot of days, you know, we went to bed a lot of night. We went to bed hungry, got up hungry. We didn't have food, but we had a uncle and an aunt, a great aunt and a great uncle. They always would, when they plant stuff, you know, like they plant the okras and the peas and the greens and have tomatoes and squashes, whatever. They plant enough for us, and we had something to eat. That most Sunday we didn't go to church. We didn't go to church because my mama, we didn't have decent clothes to wear to church. So my mama would go to my aunt's house, and we'd go out to my aunt's house on some Sunday, and she would cook greens and cornbread, that white, you know, that white, we call it white meat. And she'll cook it, and she'll get a big bread pan, and she'll put it in there, and she crumb the bread up, put the greens in there on top of the bread, and we sat there and we ate all, you know, we just eat with our hand. She had a spoon, but she said, y'all eat with y'all hand. And that's what we did, ate with our hand.
Yes,
she
ma'am.
passed away. Her name was Rachel C. Pettway. And then our uncle was named Spurling Pettway. He was a preacher. And, ooh, Lord, I just thank God for my uncle and my aunt, how they took care, hope my mother with us.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for sharing that. And I know these stories are. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Well, that's just a blow off the wind. I can really tell you all something, but when I come to Oakland, I'm gonna turn it all loose.
Yes,
and I'd like to say to you all, thank you, Miss Erin, thank you all y'all, and y'all be blessed. And I know God gonna bless you all for blessing us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And those are the stories and anecdotes you will hear at the lecture coming up on March 4th. And I'll give the particulars and all the details at the end. But now let me ask you, Dr.
Yeah.
Wilson, maybe you can give me an overview of the Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom Center and the pivotal role it plays in continuing the fight for equality and justice.
Certainly. Thank you, Eddrick, for having us on your show. It's a pleasure to be with you, and it's an honor to be with Miss China Pettway, and of course,
Thank you, sir.
the Honorable Elihu Harris. The Freedom Center was developed by a community activist, along with the participation of Barbara Lee at the time, and Elihu Harris, the city of Oakland and the Port of Oakland and the East Bay Regional Parks District put together the Freedom Center with the concept of having an intergenerational organization that was fighting for justice and peace, and not only utilize the name Martin Luther King Jr., but that's the curriculum and the foundation of the principles of the Freedom Center. Basically, what happens with young people and families that are involved in the Freedom Center is the study of Dr. King's nonviolence philosophy and reconciliation and resolution, nonviolent reconciliation, and practicing in civic engagement. So it puts theory of peace, justice, and democracy with the practice of democracy. So the students develop the capacity to gain their voice. One of the things that gets muted in America is the voice, the aspirations, the dreams, the doubts of our people. And so the young people develop how to speak. And I don't mean just speaking lessons, but how to think and how to see dots, and more importantly, how to connect dots together. It leads towards the ownership of personal and social responsibility. And I think now more than ever, the Freedom Center's necessary because it's clear that we're in a situation where we are uninformed or simply not paying attention to what our country needs, so that democracy itself is threatened by the lack of participation or the lack of consciousness. So the young people and families of the Freedom Center are developing and strongly participating in the protection and promotion of democracy.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. And so as we get ready to close, let me give the particulars of the upcoming event. Members of the famed G's Bend Quilting Collective from G's Bend, Alabama, will give a lecture on Saturday, March 4th at 7 p.m. at the Oakland Marriott in downtown Oakland. The event is free, and you can reserve a seat by calling 510-434-3988. That is part of the Elihu Harris and Barbara Lee lecture series. That will be followed by an exhibition of more than 30 quilts from the G's Bend Collective from March 3rd through March 25th at the Joyce Gordon Gallery in Oakland, which is located at 406 14th Street, or you can go to joycegordon.gallery, joycegordon.gallery. And for more information about the Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom Center, you can go to MLKFreedomCenter.org for all of the information. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to speak with us. Ms. Pettway, thank you so much for sharing your story, and all the talk about food is making me hungry. You remind me of my grandma and all the folks who used to cook all that good food. So thank you for those memories. And that is just a sample of what you will hear at the upcoming lecture on March 4th. Thank you again. This has been another edition of the Eddrick Show. I'm your host, Eddrick Jerome. I want to thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.